Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rational Female Podcast. And today we've got our lovely panel, and we're going to be talking about prostitution. So, should prostitution be legal? A lot of people have different opinions on this. From my experience, a lot of feminists think prostitution should be banned, but there are feminists who think prostitution should be legal. So, let's hear the panel. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Okay. I have experience actually with prostitution. I've actually been to a brothel called the Moonlight Bunny Ranch. It's actually very famous. It's on HBO. And I did not pay for it, actually. I had nothing morally against people who pay for it. I never would. Very long story how that worked out. But the long and short of it is, should prostitution be legal? I think yes, but with caveats. In a vacuum, I don't like the idea that someone paying someone to do something to them that they're both willing to do should not be something the government can arrest you for and call a crime. But the problem with prostitution is it is inevitably linked with gangs, organized crime, the criminal underworld, human trafficking, coercion, essentially modern day sex slavery, which is still very much a thing. And I don't want to try and estimate a percentage, but more so in Europe than in the US, but certainly everywhere in the world, an X percentage of prostitutes are essentially sex slaves, and they're being held against their will, or their passports being withheld, or whatever it is. Now, the Moonlight Bunny Ranch brothel in Nevada was owned by a man named Dennis Hoff. Very legitimate. Again, they had an HBO special done on them. Celebrities go there, NFL players go there. And my experience there, I noticed how comfortable it felt. It felt very safe. It felt very comfortable. It didn't feel creepy. It didn't feel perverted. And there was a real sense that if you tried to act any kind of way towards the girls, the police would be right there, security would be right there. And conversely, the flip side of that, you didn't have to worry about, oh, is her boyfriend going to be waiting around the corner to try and rob me? You know, is this some kind of a setup? So on both ends, it felt comfortable and it felt safe. So perhaps prostitution is best when it is legal and when it's regulated, when it's something that the government makes you get a license for, makes you have a professional standard, makes you certified, and it's something that's regulated and organized. Now, how do I reconcile that with the very first thing that I said? So let's say there's an attractive woman in a gym, and she notices a man is looking at her, and she walks up to him and says, "Listen, I can see you looking at me. If you give me $100, you can spend the night at my house tonight." Do I think that should be a crime? No, because it's harmless for the most part. So mostly yes, and mostly I think it should be regulated. I think in terms of policing and crime and law, the focus should be on the organized crime aspect, the human trafficking, the sex slavery, the coercion, all of that. So that would be my general position.
Okay, I'll chime in. So, first of all, it's a chaos of opinion out there. Trying to determine what is factually true and not is well nigh impossible. So there are those out there that feel that the human trafficking and sex trade is overestimated. There are those who will say that many of these women, they're doing it by choice. They come from some poor place. They need to support their families. They've got no money. And their one option, that is to go and sell themselves to make a lot of money, is better than her brother's no option, no way to make a lot of money, ends up digging ditches for pennies. So, yeah, again, chaos of opinion. So I think all we can do is just try and figure out, the pluses versus the minuses. What are the benefits? What are the liabilities? What are the positives? What are the negatives? And see which one maybe outweighs the other. And as far as prostitution goes, benefits include legalizing prostitution. The benefits include sex being spread more widely. There's a lot of talk of men just being shut out and they just can't get laid. And prostitution makes it possible for for maybe a large percentage of men that otherwise just couldn't touch a female, any more than they could fly around the room. If that's true, again, chaos of opinion, right? Two, well, it makes the prostitution regulated. It helps control for sexually transmitted diseases. It helps protect the prostitutes themselves. Government gets involved to make sure that that it's safe, that it's clean, that it's not spreading diseases, right? What else? Positives. It's from a politicized male perspective, it empowers men. If men are not quite so dependent upon, bow, scrape, step, fetch, and beg to get laid, if they can just go to a brothel and get their needs met, then they're not quite so under the thumb of the female power, sexual leverage. And as seen from a politicized male perspective, that's a good thing. And there's a bunch of other potential positives. Then you can start looking at the negatives. Well, it makes this transactional nature of male-female relations officially condoned. Like in Guatemala City, where I visited because a friend moved there. Prostitution is legal. And then it's like all women kind of expect to be paid for sex. It's kind of so ingrained in the culture. Then you see, then male-female interactions are all framed as this, transactional way, and that could be a negative. And what else? I don't know. Negatives of prostitution. When it's legalized. Geez, there must be others. I'm sure there are, and others in the panel will come up with them. But that's the first one that comes to my mind. Is it kind of officially condones this transactional mode of thinking of male-female relations.
Yeah, no, I think you guys both make very, very good cases. I personally think prostitution should be decriminalized because of the reasons that have been mentioned. So I think that, first of all, prostitution should be seen as a legitimate profession. And I talked about this with somebody, I think it was a good few years ago now. And yeah, I think that's because I remember discussing it with this woman, and she was saying that if prostitution is seen as a profession, then it can kind of cheapen the idea of sex. And Tim mentioned how it can make sex seem transactional. So that is obviously a big issue with it. There's a kind of, because I think from a purely practical perspective, sex work should be decriminalized because of, as said, it's better for men. It's also safer for the prostitutes, which is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And if it's legal, or at the very, I don't know if I'm not sure if it should be legal, but at the very least decriminalized, then it means that those women are protected. They're seen as legitimate workers. But the ethical issue that a lot of people have is it going to mean that sex is just treated as fundamentally meaningless and transactional? And nowadays, among my generation especially, there's this hookup culture. People seem to treat sex in this very, very superficial, meaningless, very vapid way. I think that prostitution is the world's oldest profession. I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones. Those women in brothels, they're there, they're getting paid, they're doing a job. So I think that there are women out there, and also women can make very, very good money doing sex work. So yeah. I think that if sex work is treated as a profession, it takes away a lot of the stigma, and it treats it as a thing that women are doing because they're trying to make money, in the same way as someone who's going to, say, work at McDonald's. And people might prefer doing that and making a decent income instead of, say, just going to work some really menial job. But I guess again, the issue is the ethical aspect of it. And you know, as Thomas Blueorange 22 mentioned, trafficking is very serious. I went to Amsterdam a few years ago, and I remember going to the red light district, and I did talk to a lot of these sex workers. And Amsterdam has a very, very strict policy against trafficking. So trafficking is taken very, very seriously. And I think that it's very, very complicated, but I'm generally leaning towards the decriminalized sex work angle.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's the Albanians who largely control, the Albanian mafia is largely in control of sex trafficking in Europe. Something like 90% come from Albanian mafia. Just to throw that in there.
Cool.
Also, should be pointed out that many women are involved. Many women are actually leaders or I don't know what you call them, bosses or whatever in the sex trade business.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have what are they called, madams or whatever. I understand the feminist argument. I know we're all obviously anti-feminist here, but the feminist argument of legalizing sex work is that it's empowering for women. I don't think prostitution personally is empowering for women, but I think that if somebody is doing that profession out of choice, or if because whatever reason, we don't know why people might choose to do that, it's not really anybody's business. I would go with actually, I haven't mentioned this, the liberty or the liberal argument. I consider myself someone with generally classical liberal social views, so I would go with the liberal argument of that it's a person's private choice. I don't think we have a right to tell people what they choose to do. There are people who do far, far worse things. A lot of things are legal and they're very, very bad for people. And I think that if they're taken off the black market, it can make things much, much safer and also much easier for people. So, yeah.
Can I go on a very quick tangent since you love Game of Thrones? I know this is a big debate. Do you think at any point Shay had genuine love for Tyrion?
In the book, no. In the show, I'm not sure. Because the problem is when I last rewatched it, I wasn't in the best headspace, so I can't really remember. But I think that Shay, I don't think she... What's really interesting is that she's a very, very morally ambiguous person. Tyrion is also my favorite character in the entire series. I absolutely love Tyrion.
He's great.
I think that she cares for him. Whether or not she generally loves him, I'm not sure. But I think she definitely does care for him. But ultimately, she betrays him, which is very, very sad.
No spoilers. No spoilers. Maybe people haven't watched it yet.
Well, hold on. This leads to another point, though. You see, from a male perspective, whenever money exchanges hands, a man has no way to know, is he loved or cared about, or is he just a wallet? Is he just an ATM machine? You see, from a male perspective, this is can be pretty devastating emotionally. He loves her and proves it by giving her his money, but does she love him? He doesn't know. He has no way to really know.
No, that's exactly the dilemma between Tyrion and Shay. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But MRAs often claim, or at least I know when I entered anti-feminism a long time ago, the first thing that I read from MRAs was from Paul Elam, and it was called The Letter to Traditional Women. And basically it was a letter saying that traditional women are prostitutes, that marriage is prostitution. And this is a particular viewpoint, the view that what women are selling in marriage is sex. It's not a new idea, and some people do paint it like that. So, yeah, in that sense, women are always selling sex to men, and men are the buyers of sex, and that there is always some sort of transactional thing like that. As for, to answer your question, I always say with the what do women do, men provide, and how does she prove her love? I think if you view it from the traditional perspective, the woman gives sex, and that is her love. That is her proof, because she's, in that sense, she's vulnerable. She exposes herself to pregnancy and so on and so on. Maybe today that's less pronounced because we have birth control. She's not really risking anything. But I think traditionally the woman risking sex for a man is enough proof, in a sense. That's
an interesting one. Of course, that's a female perspective. It's valid from a female point of view. From a male point of view, however, it's like saying, well, okay, I get it. So I'm so repulsive. My flesh is so repulsive that it's proof that you love me, that you will commingle with my
your flesh is so potent that it can get me pregnant, have me in a vulnerable state where I could die, cause me to have to walk around with a baby on me for several months, have to breastfeed, risk mastitis, risk death of a baby, risk your flesh is very dangerous. It's not about being horrible. Sure, we can lust over it, but we have a responsibility to ensure that we will stay alive historically, and that we will not waste our years on a baby that's going to die. So that's always a risk for women.
By the way, Jana, you know where the idea of women as prostitutes comes from? It actually comes from Engels. Not sure if anyone knows this, but the origin of the family, private property, and state. That's where this idea of women and wives as prostitution, that's where the kind of feminist notion of marriage as a form of slavery came from. It was Engels, which I think is really screwed up because, and I was watching Jana Xiolier talking about this, there's no kind of concept of marriage as a form of mutual dependency, mutual love, mutual sacrifice, mutual care. It's just this idea of marriage is this horrible, horrible idea. Now, I was thinking actually, in a way, all relationships between men and women are transactional, right? So this idea, if we look at this from a very, very, very horrible standpoint, let's say, men give money and provide, women give sex and children. Now, that's kind of strips it down to, well, we're just using each other. But if we try and take a step back and actually look at it from a more kind of softer angle, it's a lot more than just a transaction between two people. It's a exchange of love, an exchange of companionship, a partnership. So prostitution is purely transactional. Nobody is getting, and there is obviously people can fall for each other. One might have feelings for the other one, whatever. A relationship between a man and a woman, because we're talking about heterosexual relationships, is an expression of something which I think we would like to hope is a bit deeper. So the whole point of marriage is that marriage is supposed to be about two people sharing a life together, building a family, and having a teammate. Whereas going to a prostitute, you're not getting that intimacy. It's not the level of emotional intimacy that you get from a marriage is much deeper than what people would get from just going to a prostitute.
Well, from taking it down to the biological floor.
Tim, before you go in, I just want to say really fast something. You mentioned Paul Elam earlier. I will say a lot of MRAs don't agree with everything Paul Elam says, and I sometimes think the way he messages things and phrases things, I think is not good. I'll just leave it at that. As the resident MRA, I just wanted to address that.
Well, I also know them both personally, Paul Elam and Warren Farrell, and I know that there was a conscious decision that Paul Elam would take the Malcolm X role, so that Warren could take the sort of Martin Luther King role. So there was an actual sort of agreement there that there couldn't be a Martin Luther King without a Malcolm X to stir things up. Anyway, yeah. But all right. So taking it down to the biological floor, naturalists have a phrase: "Sperm's cheap, eggs are expensive." And what this translates into the female of the species holds the more valued reproductive resource. And there's two reasons for that. There's the women are the limiting factor in reproduction, which is to say that the total number of birthing females in your population determines the total number of offspring you can expect to have in your next generation. And the second reason is what Jana was on about, the females
risk.
Much more risk, much more investment.
And this is probably the reason why prostitution has been a problem historically, because it has not only been shamed because, we don't like prostitutes or we don't want women to trade sex for money. No, but
from a male point of view, you see, it's distasteful to have to pay for it, right? So
but it's also
a battle
a protection.
point of view.
It's a protection against the woman and the child. that you would make something like this illegal to make sure that women don't put children in this position. So historically, prostitution wasn't just, oh, a woman sleeps with a man for money. It was a woman sleeps with a man, potentially gets pregnant and has a child out of wedlock without a mate who will help that child to survive. It was her risking her body and child, and this risk is not something that society would have encouraged.
That's right. That's true too, right? You know, back then there was no welfare system to take care of single women and children. So yeah, so society was very much against creating single mothers and children without fathers. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this whole thing of prostitution, we call it the oldest profession, but actually it goes back, arguably it dates back further than humanity itself. There's evidence like that chimpanzees, male chimpanzees that bring meat to their to female chimpanzees greatly increased their odds of getting sex from them. And there was an experiment done. Yale University did it, where it taught these capuchin monkeys to think of these discs as money. They could put this little disc in a slot and get grapes out of it. You see, so then they try to create this like sense of money, of an economy, and predictably they did a lot of things that humans do. They hoarded their money, whatever. They risked their money. They did things that humans do. They stole others' money and that kind of thing. But they also paid females for sex.
Wow.
Yeah. So
the argument, I think
runs deep. You know, the female of the species possesses the more valued reproductive resource, and those with a valuable commodity don't give them away.
Right. So the argument that Paul made there, that marriage is a form of prostitution, I'm not saying it is or it isn't or whatever, but it's not that there's no validity in this concept that whether or not the terms of the exchange are marriage or the terms of the exchange are prostitution, this exchange is occurring within traditional marriage, at least, where the man provides something, the woman provides sex, and So this exchange, so what we're discussing is whether or not the terms of the agreement should be able to be set by society and what those terms should be, right? And then I think, yeah, I agree, prostitution should be decriminalized and all of that. But the answer to the question would depend as well upon the particular society that you're talking about and what the woman would face in that society. Because for us to decide what is fair or not, we would have to know what are the consequences. So you could say, let's say in a society where the child wouldn't have any protection or whatever, we would not want to encourage women to do this. In another society, it might be more okay if she has enough birth control. There's no risk of her having a child, and so on. So, I think that makes the discussion quite complex, and also interesting.
Yeah, and the birth control affects the rational part of it, but it has no effect on the instinct. You see,
right? So that's another thing. Human emotions. Would you want this for your daughter? Would you want this for your? I mean, if you think about it, if I think about it, who would say that they would want their daughter to be in this profession, and why would you say that? Because undoubtedly most humans recognize that there is some sort of emotional, there is an emotional component to it, probably not necessarily. There are, again, we're diverse. There may be people who don't have an emotional connection to sex. That can be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
oftentimes they do, and that's true for both men and women. Many a man falls in love with the prostitute that he's seeing, and sometimes it goes in reverse, and she falls in love with him. So
I have to say that's an excellent point, and I'm actually looking this up on Reddit right now. How would people feel about their daughter being a prostitute. I wonder if you went to Ask Feminists and you asked them that question and they were being honest, I wonder what they would say. I wonder what they would
that's kind of the ethical argument, isn't it? That's where we start to feel uncomfortable, because I think it's very similar to like abortion as well, but prostitution, because it's such an intimate thing you're doing, you know, you're sharing such an intimate part of your body with another person. And I guess we have to wonder, why is it that prostitution even arose, came about? Like, why is it that, what are the conditions that made prostitution exist? And I have a theory that the reason why prostitution exists is because a lot of men simply weren't getting sex from their wives. Well, I don't know if it's my theory or if it's just something I've read, but I reckon it's because a lot of men were getting sex from their wives. And that's why prostitution came about, because you had women who were, say, had a bit more of a higher sex drive, or women who were maybe a bit more emotionally detached, who were there, ready, available to have sex with these men. And it's kind of like, because this is commonly talked about in psychology, and feminists talk about this as well, this idea of the Madonna-whore dichotomy. This idea of, you know, men being unable to see a woman that they're married to as a sexual partner, and, you know, seeing as like, this is the mother of my children, and not being able to get sexually excited by their wife, whereas a woman they don't know is kind of a more exciting prospect. So obviously I want to ask the men, actually, the men here, what your view is on the Madonna.
Well, excuse me a sec. Are others hearing the noise? Is it
yeah,
just
I'm
me?
hearing the noise. What is that?
Okay, I don't know.
Is that you? Or,
there's no sounds in this room that I can hear. Maybe it's my phone, but
yeah, that's my room. My room's completely quiet. It sounds like a television.
Yeah, it does. Sounds like a muffled television or something.
I'm on mute, so I know it's not coming from me, but I certainly hear.
No, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay, maybe mute yourself when you're not talking if there's background noise, just to be a bit
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna turn it off right now. Tell me there's a difference.
Yeah, that's better. I can only hear myself now. Yeah. So anyway, can we? Yeah, let's get back to the
I'm on, though, it's not doing it from my end. It's
okay.
No, I think it's Blueorange 22 because mine is completely silent. Or I can check actually and see. Maybe it's me.
No, it's.
But it's okay. Tim, what is your opinion on what he said?
Yeah, the idea of the Madonna whore dichotomy.
I got distracted. What's the?
So I was basically saying that this idea that there is this Madonna whore dichotomy. That's what if it's my? Is it me? Maybe
no, I think it's blue, orange. If you mute yourself, blue, I think it will go away.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. So yeah, this idea that men would see a woman as either a wife, as in a woman that they want to have intimate they want to have, you know, a family.
Okay, yeah, the Madonna
whore. Yeah, what's your view on that as a man? Because I want to hear a man's perspective on that.
Well, you see, there's an ambivalence within men. It's like we want women to be hypersexual, but only with us.
Yeah.
You see, because so on the one hand, we want the woman to be all over us and have a desire for us, and we want our wife to be chaste, to only be attracted to us, because we know how easy it is for a woman to get sex. And so we're insecure. We marry some woman, we bring home the bacon, and we want to be have some assurance that she is only having sex with us. And so that's put pressure on women to appear chaste and you know, sort of not interested in sex, except with her husband. However unlikely that may be, that's been the sort of illusion that we've agreed upon as men and women. And what else?
Do you think there's an evolutionary component for that, or do you think it comes from religion? Where do you think that comes from?
Where does it come from? Well, I think, you know, the biological difference is the where it derives. I pretty much think everything derives in some way from biology, from chivalry, instinct, and eros, and then culture gets hold of it and does its thing with it, and that's different. You know, they're like, these instincts are like seeds, and what they grow into depends on the cultural soil they're planted in. But yeah, so men hate the idea that they're paying for sex, because from a male point of view, that makes us feel ugly and shunned, that we have to pay to get a woman to touch us and commingle with us, is you know, an awful feeling from a male. See, it all comes down to perspective.
Sorry, I don't know why that's funny to me.
Well,
I shouldn't laugh. I don't know why I find that very
yeah,
funny.
I mean, it's but you can get it, right? I mean, you see where a man's coming from.
Yeah,
he wants to think that she desires sex and doesn't need to be paid to have sex with him, right? So it all comes down to these points of view. You know, I'm not saying that the female point of view is any less valid. I'm just saying that the male and female perspectives are different.
And what you just said is exactly why I have nothing personal against prostitution if it's done in a way that is all consensual and obviously not human trafficking. But personally, I just wouldn't enjoy it for exactly the reason that Tim said. If I thought she would only be interested if I'm paying her, then she's not really interested. And then I'm not interested.
Right. And then I'm going where I'm not wanted. I'm going someplace that feels lousy.
So just sorry. Tim, continue, please.
So you see, yeah, I mean, psychologically, women have always had to kind of walk that tightrope so that they will receive the material support that they need without appearing to while still maintaining that she loves the man and desires him, and that sex is you know, something that she wants just as much as he does. That's kind of what women attempt to project, and it's exactly so that men won't be turned off. It's an awful feeling to think that a woman will only touch you if you pay her. I mean, you know, it's just that feels horrible. So the deal has to be worked out so that, in fact, there's this lesbian author that I love, her name Pat Califia, and she did an essay about what if she had to have a dick for a day. In other words, if for one day she had to be male. She said, well, if I had to be male, I sure as hell wouldn't want to be a heterosexual male, because she's looking at it, she says that, and this was some time ago, but she was saying that the deal, in order for sex to be a bargaining chip, women have to present sex as this awful thing that men do to them that only the men enjoy, and therefore they're entitled to a late model car, a home, and summer vacations in Europe. See, I mean, it can easily feel that way from a male perspective, and that's deadly. So men need to convince themselves, and women need to allow men to convince themselves that within the marriage bonds, the woman loves him and desires him.
So that's really interesting, because I've obviously never, by the way, I have what's called a nervous disposition. So sometimes if something sounds really shocking, I will laugh. That's another thing I do. But yeah, this idea of, like, you know, a man being repulsed at the idea of having to pay for sex, that's really interesting. I want to dial back to this idea of the Madonna whore complex, because that's something I think about a lot. And I do wonder as well, like, because as we know, men obviously desire sex more than women, and women are the gatekeepers of sex from a very purely technical perspective. So is it realistic for men to see women, because I think Christianity reinforced this idea as well, is it realistic for a man to both basically want a woman to be very sexual, but only with him, and to also not flaunt her sexuality with other men. Is this actually realistic? Because it's like,
no, it's not realistic.
It's very strange. Not strange. I don't want to say strange, but it seems like a very unrealistic idea. And I have thought about this because someone mentioned in the comments about this idea of intersexual competition. I wonder if the reason why is because it's about what's the word I'm looking for now? Possessiveness, you know, like men, I guess men would agree, want to be, you know, feel like they're in possession of somebody, not in a horrible way, but like, this is my woman, she belongs to me. And if she's been with lots of other men, there's that idea that, you know, she's had a lot of other men, therefore she's no longer just mine.
That's right. How can you marry her and expect her to be loyal when she's got a body count of 500?
Yeah. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with this, by the way. I'm being very
well, a lot of this stuff is emotional. It's not coming from as a rational place. You know, we humans are very emotional, and we're driven by sentiment, and we're driven by, you know, illusion. So yeah, it's not logical for men to want to possess a woman. But emotionally, it has to do with possessiveness, because he needs to believe that the offspring are his, and that he is bringing home the bacon, you know, for his own children, not being cuckolded, you know. So I mean, all this psychological complexity is part of it.
Women Against Feminism, you got any thoughts on this as a married woman?
Yeah, well, I think I understand what Tim was saying. Like, the guy doesn't want the woman to only be interested in him for money, which is why prostitution could be unappealing on some levels. But I think even still, the woman, even if we keep within the realm of the woman has a lower sex drive, the man has, so the man is buying the sex from the woman. It is that she would want to please him on some level because of money. She likes him, whatever the various reasons. And I guess that whole want for her to want him for more than just money, I think is because money is a fragile thing that you can lose or it can go away. He wants a more stable emotional connection. So he wants a connection or something that bonds him to the woman that is more stable than money, because money could be here today, gone tomorrow, whatever. If she likes him or whatever, for him, this is something that he can control because he's funny, because he's whatever. This is something within his control that he can always keep, and that forms a stronger bond between the people. He needs to be sure that it's his kid and so on. So there are all these emotional bonds or whatever between women and men, and women have their part and men have their part. But at the end of the day, there is some sort of transaction, I think, between men and women, where women are genuinely less interested in sex on a
well, that's what the evidence suggests. Certainly the clinical evidence suggests that about 32% of women lack interest in sex.
Right.
I mean, not many.
Versus 15% for men.
I'm actually not. I'm not totally sure I agree with that narrative. I think maybe men are slightly more interested, but you really nowadays see just as many women on hookup apps. You see just as many women cheating on their boyfriends.
I don't think that would tell you, because I think even if women weren't interested in sex, if we want what we want from men, which may be emotional and many different things, if we want that, if you're talking about in today's world, we would exchange sex freely for that. So what I mean by that is that if you're saying you see women with high sex drives who want if a woman, or I can say from a female point of view, is lacking, let's say, an emotional connection, she thinks the only way for her to get it is through a man, she probably will trade sex for that. Meaning she will say, yeah, I'm interested in sex, I really want to have this, whatever. It's not representative of what she really wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And also, you know, men have more testosterone in their bodies. It's not,
a woman will easily lie to men in this sense.
That, you know, men do desire sex more than women. That's just a fact. However, in modern times as well, as Jana was saying, because of things like women, and also a lot of women, and I'm thinking about women I know who've been sexually promiscuous, they most women who slept with a lot of men don't actually enjoy it. They don't want to be sleeping with lots and lots of men, and they usually do it for certain reasons. And I don't want to talk too much about personal experiences, but I'll say that also if a woman has been sexually abused, abuse can also make a woman become very emotionally detached from sex. I also think regarding prostitution, I wonder as well to what extent women who go into sex work have also been abused. Because if you have been abused or violated in some way, it doesn't necessarily have to be rape, but if it's some sort of sexual violation, that completely changes the way you see sex as a woman. It warps the way you view sex. You end up viewing sex in this very, very animalistic way, and it's not in a kind of traditionally feminine way. So I think traditionally, well, this isn't really me, I don't think this is just a fact, women typically need emotional connection in order to have sex with a man. And a lot of women now, actually, this very good book I read mentioned this is very, very, very good thing to note. Alcohol, readily accessible alcohol impairs judgment. And a lot of women have a lot of sex and they're drinking lots of alcohol. So alcohol or drugs, this stuff can make women lower their inhibitions, which leads to women becoming, having lots of sexual partners. So I think that, we're seeing this rise now in young women having sexual partners. And
which, by the way, when it comes to alcohol, that is a situation that I think men should genuinely avoid, sleeping with women who are under the influence of alcohol.
That's not very realistic, though, because a lot of drunk women will come onto a man. A lot of women will be drunk. Like, I think it's because also, like, if you're drunk, I don't believe the feminist argument that all drunk sex is grape. I think that
no,
it depends how drunk. True. Like, you can be drinking or you can be paralytic. It's not the same.
Jeez. I mean, that expands the definition of rape much too wide. Then,
But coming back to, sorry, but just to tap back onto what Blueorange said, where he was talking about that a lot of women today, he sees a lot of women who have high sex drives, and he thinks that their sex drive is equal to men and it's the same and stuff. Who knows? Maybe it is. I don't know the science behind it, but I want to say that in this world today, like how we are increasingly less and less communal, and women have, I believe, I don't know if men have it or if everyone has it, but I know as me or whatever, and I feel like as a woman, we have emotional needs for certain emotional connections. I don't know how to describe this very well, but we, just like men have a loneliness epidemic, women have their own version of a loneliness epidemic. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of women, also seen from the film that I talked about last week, what women find themselves in is in a situation where they cannot build those connections. They don't have anyone. There is no community. There are no other women. There is no community. We're just without that. And when you want that connection, one of the easiest ways for a woman to get that connection, sadly, is through sex with a man. In that she can use sex to manipulate men in order to get that type of connection. And actually, I was analyzing that film with my husband, and that is exactly what the feminists didn't even realize that they were telling themselves in this way, because it was a very feminist film. But that is what it was saying, in a sense, that these women in marriages, in relationships, in whatever, what they are doing is using sex to manipulate men in order to try and get men to fulfill this emotional connection, which they don't have, which is the result of not having community and has nothing to do with men. But it comes,
It's very interesting, because I will say it does seem like women are much more likely than men to regret casual sex.
Absolutely. The data supports that 100%.
It's not just about that. Where you will really see the sex drive of a woman is not within single settings and the settings that you talk about where a woman it seems to want as much sex. You will see the sex drives of men versus women in marriage, where no one has anything to lose, where everything is settled, and where people just say, we'll do what we want. This is where you can observe what is the sex drive difference between a man and a woman. And
according to David Buss, his surveys, men are 50% more likely to complain of a lack of sex as compared to wives.
Annie Hall. I don't know if you guys have seen Annie Hall. Woody Allen makes a joke about this.
Annie Hall, that's right. Yeah.
So Blueorange, note that when you're dating and you see these women with lots of high sex drive and things, it might very well be that she is an outlier and has a high sex drive. But think about it as well. It might be that this woman needs emotional attention. And, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely the women, I know sometimes it's not even the woman's being manipulative. It can also be that she herself feels starved of some kind of emotional satisfaction. But to dial it back to prostitution, and also I want to wrap up in 5 minutes. Do we think that there's a reason why some women become prostitutes, or what would lead a woman to become a prostitute in general?
I mean, there's a million reasons why. Desperation. Some women might enjoy it. Some women are coerced and trafficked. There are many, many different reasons. Some of them are more nefarious than others. I'd say for the average woman who is doing it willfully and by choice, it's simply about money, whether or not it's seen as easy money or a lot of money, or whether or not it's seen as desperate money and all she can do is that. So yeah, I think
there's also reason to believe that a woman's primary drive is not to desire the man as much as it is to be desired by the man.
Yes, women don't want men; they want to be desired. Absolutely,
right. So that's another reason why women may get into prostitution, is to be desired.
Yeah,
is a turn on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Strippers, that's also, they love going out there onto the floor, and they love that power they have over the men, and they love to see the men drooling.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
We wouldn't do it for free. Most of them.
But maybe they would. Like you said, some of them have high sex drive, and maybe it's just something that she wants. Maybe she would do it for free.
Maybe she would, but why do it for free when she can get paid for it, right?
Yeah. I will also say as well, this was mentioned, in long-term relationships, women's desire for sex tends to wane, whereas men's does not. So I can't remember what book I read which talks about this now, but I think it's after something like even 2 years. After 2 years, the woman's sex drive starts to decline, and she starts to desire sex a lot less. Because I'm wondering also, is this a reason why men, historically have gone to prostitutes? And this is what I'm kind of thinking about a lot, because they're not getting something like, again, asking the men on the panel, what drives men to cheat on their wives? This is such a, women can't wrap their heads around this. Why do men cheat? Because men, and yes, I know women cheat, but men have always cheated more than women. So if a man's in a perfectly satisfying marriage and getting his needs met, or maybe he's not getting his needs met, what's going on there?
Well, I'm not sure if men cheat more or if women just get away with it more. The thing is, okay, so I had something really good, and now it's
sex drive. If they have a higher sex drive, wouldn't that lead to cheating?
Well,
okay, I'll jump in real fast and say this. First of all, I agree with Tim. I'm not sure men cheat more, but that's not really the point. I'll say this for me. I've never had a long-term relationship, and I don't think I will. I don't think I'm going to get married because, frankly, I think I eventually would get bored of my wife, and I would never want to cheat, so I would never put myself in that situation. But frankly, one woman isn't enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, see, if a man could get what he wanted, if he could get his fantasy is it's to have this one woman that's loyal, that he's safe with, that it's monogamous and everything, leave it to Beaver. And then he goes into his closet, and there's a little trap door, you see, and he can go through this little trap door into this world where he's just in great vast piles of blondes, and just getting a smorgasbord of sex, you see. The men really want both.
I'm trying to build like a roster around my town. Like 3 or 4 women I could see, I could see Mondays and Wednesdays. I could see
yeah.
Kind of like a rotation, like a roster. So
anyway, yeah.
So that's another ambivalence for men. Here's another little tidbit of something that this is anecdotal, but it's probably true. The more sex a woman gets, the more sex she wants. And why? Because a man is regularly pumping testosterone into her.
Is that true?
It probably is. There's no way to prove it. You can't exactly control that. I don't know what kind of laboratory is going to prove that, but yeah, anecdotally, it's probably true.
Yeah, it is true. Women's testosterone goes up after sex. It's true.
Sure, because men pump testosterone into them when they ejaculate.
I don't know.
Anyway, we're coming to the end of the stream now, so it's been a really, really interesting discussion as usual. I always enjoy our discussions. Anyone got any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I don't like the feminists who push the Scandinavian model. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
It's legal for the prostitute, but illegal for the customer. I mean, to me, that just interesting.
For those who, do you want to say what for those who don't know, the Scandinavian model of prostitution is women can sell, but men can't buy. Or, well, prostitutes can sell sex, but clients are not allowed to purchase.
Yeah, but the clients can be sent to jail.
Stupid. Yeah, it's very, very stupid. Yeah, I've heard that.
Miss Andre.
It's Miss Andre. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Oh, sorry, Jana, you got any closing thoughts or no? Okay. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Had some listeners. Stay tuned. I will be live streaming again on Sunday with somebody else, so stay tuned for that. And hopefully we'll have the same panel back next week or the week after. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.